prosecution of felon gangster mafiotic negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney Nassau County, with no private law experience, detested by all factions, in spite of this, solely because of his many-year secret gangsterization and crucifixion of me, this negroidic, low, mafiotic, deadly Black Frank Gelada was then immediately and unprecedentedly and repeatedly, rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse-than-a-farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan's ball of fat felon slut wife, she, as planned, sat in the front row, repeatedly stripping her overclothes and completely pulling up her dress and slip and pulling aside her old-fashioned pink bloomers in order to display her anus, her conch. She repeatedly gesticulated and whispered, "I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him." Her husband's dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan, flushed-faced in repeated open sodomistic displays, stuck out his tongue, wiggling it, chuckling to her. "You hangman rope gangster felon parroting puppet scum on top playboys can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious lowly sodomistic display by the felon sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County Court. After my worse-than-Nazi court criminal conviction, crucifixion, for years in poverty I suffered hopeless, jobless, character assassination, and isolation in this low, deadly nigger town. I was the repeat target victim of this gangster government's gangsterization and undetectable extermination attempts to shut me up forever with my secrets. Then, in December 14th to 17th, 1965, I attempted to escape this worst mongrel gangster communist country to return to the Slovenic Polish land of my forefathers. Instead, in a gangster-staged parroting puppet deadly conspiracy, I was flown from Kennedy, New York Airport at night to a small, distant St. Lawrence River estuary, snowbound small airport under the guise that I was in Warsaw, Poland. Immediately, many, many things proved this to me, including the two big white asbestos-shingled hangars with the large Braniff Airways signs on their sidewalls, in addition to the many blurted statements I solicited from the many CIA deadly gangsters, the assassins of me, the many, many parroting puppets all around me. I demanded an immediate flight back to Kennedy, New York Airport. Instead, I was held captive all night, later in chains. I refused both all food and requests I go to sleep. Then CIA police gangsters pretending to be Polish police with no identification beat me bloodily. Later, while my return trip 707 Boeing jet airliner was being serviced for my return trip, I quickly walked into the airplane and saw a CIA gangster with a small electric hairdryer type blower pumping deadly poison nerve gas smoke into secret compartments under the ashtrays in the arms of the chairs, where later I was ordered to sit in the airplane full of CIA underlings, passengers, my assassins, who giggled as they watched me dragged in chains by the airplane by the gangster CIA police gangsters. These deadly gangster CIA passengers, they pressed the frontal panel of the ashtrays in the seat arms to release the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Indubitably, all of the others deadly CIA underling gangsters aboard this staged return flight, they all had taken the top secret poison nerve gas antidote pill, immuning them from the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Deadly poison nerve gas smoke was sprayed at me from cigars, cigarettes, and even from ballpoint pens, also from the wig of a woman sitting next to me. Even the Swiss cheese type ice cubes were evaporating into poison nerve gas smoke in all of the free drinks. I got up and went to the rear of the airplane by the rear exit door with a large push-up handle. My Frankenstein brain thoughts broadcasting radio disclosed my intentions. Immediately, the loudspeakers screamed that the flight was over and that our airplane was already preparing to land at Kennedy, New York Airport. You hangman rope sneak gangster playboy scum on top know these facts are true, not only from taking part in such undetectable exterminations, but also you chicanerous, demented, felon, parroting puppet gangsters can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of all these horrible, terrifying, deadly events. When I returned home, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother and deadly felon, murderer, and assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, he beat me repeatedly, cursing me that I was not exterminated by all of the poison nerve gas smoke, and that I did the impossible in that I kept awake for 3 days and refused all food in order to prevent my sneak extermination. In accordance with the completely gangster computer god concocted and manipulated statutory laws, one of your gangster court's requisite duties is to automatically rehear my said appeal case, because it has been brought to your attention, you hangman rope gangsters, that my entire life was destroyed by you co-conspirators through the gangster government perjured and fabricated criminal conviction of me in order to fulfill the demands of your communist god, the worldwide mad deadly gangster computer god. You deadly parroting puppet felon gangsters already know that I have been and am an innocent primary victim and target for destruction and extermination because I am a menace to your gangster computer god, and that I am worse than defenseless without the gangster protection and control of the gangster Frankenstein earphone radio. I stand alone against you demented, deadly gangster parroting puppets, namely this worst gangster communist computer god-controlled gangster government. Before I'm exterminated by you hangman rope underlings, I demand a reply. October 21st, 1976. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. Addendum. I personally filed my maximum conviction appeal brief in 1961 with the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. The chief clerk, he knew me. He sneeringly grabbed my thick, strong, homemade appeal brief, and then he attempted to rip it up in desperation. The chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court ripped off the cover of my appeal brief. Miraculously, I stopped him without a deadly scene to me. Then, filing my ripped appeal brief, the felon, another co-conspirator with the 9 hangman rope gangster judges, the chief clerk, in cowardly fear, in staccato speech and gesticulation, he confessed to me, Mr. Deck, everyone is in on this one against you, even the Attorney General, namely Bobby Kennedy, younger than his very young brother Jack Kennedy, Kennedy then president, the Kennedy Playboys. Little fag Bobby was a felon, lowest, chicanerous, untouchable, parroting puppet gangster against worse than defenseless Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. My quick questioning and the co-conspiring felon chief clerk explained and gave me a new and special notice form for only Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire, which had to be mailed to the opposition, the deadly gangster district attorney, in order to prevent the dismissal of my appeal case. Leaving quickly, I noticed in the room and hall several approaching uniformed and plainclothes beweaponed police. Later, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother, deadly villain, murderer, and secret assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, cursed me, stating that I tricked the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court and that I got out of that death trap fast. So brainwashed from birth by the computer god threshold brainwash radio, parroting puppet gangster slave, if you believe in anything, forget kneeling to abide by the high holy law long enough to say one word of pray for me, for your only hope for a future. Footnote, remember, it is gangster U.S. Supreme Court written high holy law. I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him. Rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse than a farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan's ball of fat felon slut wife, she, as planned, sat in the front row, repeatedly stripping her overclothes and completely pulling up her dress and slip and pulling aside her old-fashioned pink bloomers in order to display her anus, her conch. She repeatedly gesticulated and whispered, I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him. Her husband, dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan, flushed-faced in repeated open sodomistic displays, stuck out his tongue, wiggling it, chuckling to her. You hangman rope gangster felon parroting puppet scum on top playboys can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious lowly sodomistic display by the felon sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County Court. After my worse than Nazi court criminal conviction, crucifixion, for years in poverty I suffered hopeless, jobless, character assassination.
Good evening, and I just realized my oscilloscope thing's not working, so I'll have to turn that on. No matter. Hope you guys are doing good this evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is for you. Today, we're going to go over the, I guess the Domestic Patriot Act is what some people are calling it. The, the Domestic Spying Anti-White People Act might be a better name for it. Let's see here, got that going. And boom. All right, there we go. Okay. We're also going to take a look at, apparently CNN, a lot of their footage came from a stringer. If you don't know what that is, it's just like it's like a contract reporter. So she just does reporting for, anyone that'll hire her. And looks like she teamed up with some BLM slash Antifa kind of guy to get into the Capitol. Possible that he was agitating, but really it just, I know that's the narrative that the Q people are going to go, see, I told you it was Antifa. But that's, I mean, look, he was like one out of a handful of guys, and that's not at all what he was there to do. But he is super cringe, and we'll take a look at, I guess, some of his Discord server got leaked out. And he's, it's kind of funny. In order for the FBI to actually arrest an Antifa or a BLM guy, he's got to be with MAGA people that go into the Capitol. But we'll take a look at that as well. So we'll take a look here at, let's take a look at the bill first. Let me bring this up here. We'll get right into it. Launch right into this stuff. I haven't read this. I was going to read it and then talk about it, but then when I went to go check it out, it turned out that it really wasn't that long. And so I just figured, fuck it, we'll just look at it together. We'll read it together because it's like a page. Well, it's more than a page. It's not super long, though. I wonder if there's a better looking version of this. There's the person who sent this to me, or actually I got this from a Telegram page, and for whatever reason the word white has been highlighted. I think, whatever, we'll just leave it highlighted, even though sometimes it doesn't matter. It's like White House, the white part is highlighted. Or we could listen to this page. We can act like we're blind, and we need, because the government has to have all these accessibility options with everything that they have on the web. I wonder what it sounds like. Let's just play it, see what it sounds like. Maybe it's really funny. Listen to this page. Here it goes.
There is one version of the bill.
Ooh.
Text available as XML HTML. XML HTML.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
PDF.
Okay. So let's take a look at this here. I just realized that you guys have not had any audio this whole time. Oh no, we got to start over. We have to start over. Sorry, guys. All right. Oh, this is painful. This is why I should drink my coffee before I go live, but, you know, it is what it is. Okay, let's take it from the top. Alrighty. So we have the Senate Bill 894 to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism office within the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activities and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism. Just want to make sure I'm on the right microphone. Okay. Yes, I have the right microphone. All right. A bill to authorize, okay, it just says basically the same thing. The short title, this act may be cited as the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2019. Findings. Congress finds the following. White supremacists and other far-right-wing extremists are the most significant domestic terrorism threat facing the United States. What? That's interesting. That's news to me. That is news to me. That white supremacists. See, even if you include, I can't think of anyone that's been at least in the last year or so, right? We had the Summer of Love. Well, of course, now this was written in 2019, so this is prior to the summer of BLM and Antifa burning down half the country. However, I can't think of any significant right-wing extremist terrorist attacks in recent years. Can you? I guess someone in chat just said, "What about Vegas?" Maybe if they had counted the Vegas shooting as a white supremacist terrorist attack, but he was shooting white people, so I don't know how that works out. On February 22nd, 2019, a Trump administration, United States Department of Justice official wrote in the New York Times op-ed that white supremacy and far-right extremism are among the greatest domestic security threats facing the United States. That seems odd. Regrettably, over the past 25 years, law enforcement at both the federal and state levels have been slow to respond. Killings committed by individuals and groups associated with far-right extremist groups have risen significantly. Have they now? Have they now? You could have fooled me. You could have fooled me. Now, as I was saying before when my microphone was off, it's a little weird that, see here, they're going to be writing a law. They're going to write a law to address this terrible, terrible problem. And what the first thing that they cite as evidence of this problem isn't anything statistical in nature. It's not actual data. It's an op-ed in the New York Times written by some random guy that they don't even bother naming at the Department of Justice. At Trump's Department of Justice, I might add. Well, that's okay. I'm sure they'll bring up some data in this next point. In April 2017, Government Accountability Office report on the significant lethal threat posed by domestic violent extremists explained that since September 12, 2001, the number of fatalities caused by domestic violent extremists has ranged from 1 to 49 in any given year. Well, let's just pause on that for a second. 1 to 49. And then also I want to point out, interesting that they're choosing the date September 12th, 2001. We'll find out why here in a second. That's an odd date to choose for like your data. Beginning September 12th, 2001. And we'll get into that in a second, but even so, 1 to 49 in any given year. What are the black on white murder statistics? We should be so lucky. If there was only 1 to 49 whites murdered by black people every year, that would be amazing. That would be probably as close to utopia as you're going to be able to get. 1 to 49 in any given year. I mean, I think Chicago gets 1 to 49 in any given weekend. But that's okay. This isn't actually about saving lives, now is it? So moving right along. The report noted fatalities resulting from attacks by far right-wing violent extremists have exceeded those caused by radical Islam. Radical Islamists, violent extremists in 10 of the 15 years. Remember, 10 of the 15 years starting September 12th, 2001. And look, we all know who really did 9/11, but you know, they got to play the game. So they got to start pulling this data from the day after 9/11, right? And were the same in 3 of the years since September 12th, 2001. Of the 85 violent extremist incidents that resulted in death since September 12th, 2001, far right-wing violent extremist groups were responsible for 62, 73%, while radical Islamist violent extremists were responsible for 23, 27%. All right, well, that's interesting. Let's take a look at those numbers. Right? So you're saying that Muslims are still responsible for 27% of these violent extremist attacks, right? Which is pretty loosey-goosey on definition, but let's just go with it. Really don't think America is 27% Muslim. Really don't think so. And I also suspect that because we're only including 2 groups here, we're missing a lot of data. We're only including white people and Muslims. That's it. For some reason, this bill is only talking about 2 groups. And there seems to be one group that's very notably missing here. A group that's responsible for over half the murders in the United States every year. Odd that would be missing. Odd that racially motivated, radical, extremist violence, murder, whatever this is, they wouldn't include the group that, I don't know, is responsible for, I would say, a much larger chunk than probably both these groups put together. But again, this isn't about saving lives. This isn't about saving 1 to 49 lives a year. I mean, that's how many people have probably already died from the vaccine, right? Like, they don't care about 1 to 49 lives, okay? This is about, we need to stop these fucking white people. That's what it is. That's what this bill is. Number 4, an unclassified May 2017 Joint Intelligence Bulletin from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I'm just going to say FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security found that white supremacist extremism poses a persistent threat of lethal violence, and that white supremacists were responsible for 49 homicides and 26 attacks from 2000 to 2006. Well, hold on. Wait, because they were saying before, made it sound like that there was 1 to 49 every year. But now there's only 49 in 16 years? So so now we're talking like about pretty much a non-problem. We're talking about in a country of 350 million people that 49 people have been killed and this is according to their numbers. It's probably not even that, but let's just use their numbers. 49 people have been killed by these scary white supremacists in 16 years. 16 years. And again, as I've said, 49 people were probably killed in Chicago last weekend. You know, like this has nothing to do with saving lives. This has absolutely nothing to do with saving lives. 49 people in 16 years. The federal government has never given a shit about something that causes 49 fatalities in a span of 16 years. All right, let's see what they list as their official white supremacist terror attacks. On August 5th, 2012, mass shooting at a Sikh Gurdwara, I guess that's like a church for Sikhs, in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, in which a white supremacist shot and killed 6 members of the Gurdwara, whatever. Okay, I vaguely remember that. I don't know if he was really a white supremacist, but let's give it to him, all right? 2 years later, so there was a whole year where nothing happened apparently. April 13th, 2014, mass shooting at a Jewish community center and a Jewish assisted living facility at Overland Park, Kansas, in which a neo-Nazi shot and killed 3 civilians, including a 14-year-old teenager. I don't remember this one. But again, all these incidents so far, like, all right, we got 6 people dead in 1 year. And we've got 3 so far. Looks like another one for 2014. We'll take a look at that in a second. This doesn't even... Like, if you were to make a graph and put these homicides next to black on white violence that's racially motivated, you wouldn't be able to see this bar on the graph because the other bar would be so big. And it would be every year, and it's not even mentioned. If you're worried about domestic terrorism that's racially motivated, which supposedly this bill is talking about, why are you forgetting the biggest problem? And mentioning all this stuff that, as I said, as tragic as it might be, compared to a normal day in America, you can come up with these numbers every week. Every single fucking week. There's racially motivated homicides where blacks are murdering whites. I mean, one of them happened today. The guy walking his dog, just walking his dog. They just murdered him for no reason. Who knows if they even knew who he was? Or the day before that, there was a 56-year-old woman or something. She was planting flowers. Planting flowers, just outside, planting flowers. Some black guy ran up and jump kicked her fucking head. Broke her cheek. Sent her to the hospital. That's just the last 2 days. Something like that at least happens every day. But again, this is not about public safety. This has nothing to do with saving lives. This is about getting rid of the white people. All right, so moving right along. In 2014, ambush in Las Vegas, Nevada, in which 2 supporters of the far right-wing Patriot movement shot and killed 2 police officers and a civilian. I don't know what that is, but the fact they put the Patriot in quotes, I kind of feel like maybe that's reaching a little bit, but who knows. June 17th, 2015, mass shooting at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, in which a white supremacist shot and killed 9 members of the church. Is that, I think it's Dylan Roof, right? November 27th, 2015, mass shooting at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs, Colorado, in which an anti-abortion. This one's not even like white supremacist. This is just someone that doesn't like babies getting murdered. But let's lump it in though, because nothing else. We don't have any other statistics, so let's just throw in some. We'll just add this guy in there too, because he was white, right? Which, again, if we want to play that game, look at black on white crime. Look at black on white crime every year, every single year, and then do the math. Do the math, because it's not just about raw numbers, which it would still, that bar would still dwarf these statistics here, right? But then now adjust for population. And then ask yourself, what's the real problem here? You have 13% of the population doing over half of the murders every year. And a significant portion of those are racially motivated and random. But now let's talk about that one time 2 people got shot in 2014. Oh, look, here we go. In 2017, a murder of an African-American man in New York allegedly committed, see, now we don't even know, allegedly committed by a white supremacist who reportedly traveled to New York for the purpose of killing black men. Okay, once again, just today, a guy was walking his dog and was killed for being white. He was murdered for being white. See, what you're seeing here is not only is the law enforcement apparatus in this country looking the other way and ignoring the threat to you, they're increasing the threat to you. When I said that you already lost your country, that you are the other, you are in enemy territory, I wasn't fucking around. This is not how a government that is worried about your safety behaves. This is not a government that what a government that represents you does. This is what an enemy-occupied government who sees you as a disease that has to be cured and eradicated. This is what they do. Oh my God! So of course they have Charlottesville in here. That's good. That's rich. So yeah. Antifa attacks a guy's car, and he panics, and some lady dies of a heart attack. And, of course, that's, once again, white supremacist terrorism. And you can thank Jeff Sessions for giving them this nice little quote. Jeff Sessions, remember, Trust Sessions? It does meet the definition of domestic terrorism in our statute, he said. Thanks, Jeff Sessions. Really appreciate you having our back there. All right, let's move right along. 2018, murder of an African-American woman from Kansas, Missouri, allegedly committed by a white supremacist who was reportedly bragged about being a member of the KKK, because everyone knows that's still a thing, right? Everyone knows that the KKK is real, and they're look. This is what I'm talking about. None of this is based on any actual problem other than the problem that they see in you. You are a problem that has to be solved. October 24th, the shooting in Jefferson, Kentucky, in which a white man allegedly murdered 2 African Americans at a grocery store after first attempting to enter a church with predominantly African American congregation during a service. Well, I don't even know about that one. But if they're saying allegedly, And then, of course, the Tree of Life synagogue thing that is questionable, to say the least. And the rabbi got busted already for embezzling donations to the fallen. All right, let's keep going. It's painful. It's painful because everyone knows who pays attention. This sort of a thing happens at least once a week, and usually more often than that. Every week, every goddamn week. It doesn't just happen, it happens on video. So imagine all the shit that we don't have video of. We've all seen the videos every single week. This kind of shit happens all the time to white people. All the time. There's no special task force. No, they turn it around because they want to get rid of you. So these attacks that you're seeing videos on Twitter of every single week, that's a good thing as far as they're concerned. In November of 2018, the FBI released its annual hate crime incident report, and this should be good, which found that in 2017, hate crimes increased by approximately 17%. By the way, you realize that hate crime data, a lot of it's provided to them by the ADL and by the SPLC. So, you know, yeah. I think you can, I think you know the rest of that story. Including a 23% increase in religion-based hate crimes. Oh my God, an 18% increase in race-based crimes. Now, funny, so far at least, this isn't saying anything about these increases being white people, but, you know, whatever. A 5% increase. I'm waiting. Hopefully you guys, come back here. It says it's going, so I'm going to wait around here for you guys to let me know when you can hear me again. You're back? All right. You guys are going to have to refresh. You guys need to reload. I'm going to tell everyone to reload. Refresh. I'm back. Okay. They're clearly, the deep state is not happy with what I'm saying. The truth bombs I'm dropping. Okay, anyway. So I think it dropped like around this part. So I was talking about how they talk about this increase, but they actually, there's no mention of this increase being as a result of white people. This is just all across the board, these increases. So these increases could be anybody. But of course, they don't mention that because the truth doesn't matter to these people, and this is all just a gaslighting smokescreen anyway. Oh yeah, see, and here's our favorite ADL numbers. Of the hate crimes motivated by religious bias in 2016, 53% were anti-Semitic. My God. You mean the ADL told the FBI that there was a 53% increase in anti-Semitism like every year? Similarly, the report analyzing 2015 found that hate crimes increased by 6% that year. Of course it did. Much of 2015 increase also came from a 66% rise in attacks on, not from, American Muslims, and a 9% rise in attacks on American Jews. In all three reports, race-based crimes were most numerous, and those crimes most often targeted African Americans. Yeah, no mention, again, zero mention of white victimization. Zero mention. I'd love to see those numbers included in your little bill here, but they would kind of make your bill sound silly now, wouldn't it? On March 15, 2019, a white nationalist was arrested and charged with the murder after allegedly killing 50 Muslim worshippers and injuring more than 40 in a massacre at the Al Noor Mosque and Linwood Mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. Not America. I don't know if you guys know that. Not America. Totally irrelevant. And probably not even the real story, but whatever. Not American. In January 2017, a right-wing extremist who had exposed anti-Muslim views was charged with murder for allegedly killing 6 people and injuring 19 in a shooting rampage at a mosque in Quebec City, Canada. Again, not America. Not in the United States. Didn't happen here. You're talking about a domestic spying bill, and you're citing international incidents because you don't have any to cite here in America. So you're kind of proving that you don't need what you're asking for. On February 15, 2019, federal authorities arrested U.S. Coast Guard Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hassan. That doesn't sound like a white name. Paul Hassan, who was allegedly planning to kill a number of prominent journalists, professors, judges, leftists in general. In court filings, prosecutor described Lieutenant Hassan as a domestic terrorist who in an email identified himself as a white nationalist for over 30 years and advocated for the focused violence in order to establish a white homeland. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, man. You might have been a white nationalist for 30 years, but I'm a little suspicious of your Hassan last name. But secondly, dude didn't do anything. Apparently, whatever you already have in place caught him. So, it kind of seems like you don't need this extra stuff because, well, your last two examples didn't even happen in America. One of them didn't even happen in North America, like the entire continent, or even in the same hemisphere. And your last example, the system that you were saying is inadequate, worked and caught the guy. So that's a little bit weird. Anyway, moving right along. Definitions. In this act, the term director means the director of the FBI. The term domestic terrorism has the meaning given the term in section 2331 of Title 18, blah, 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 whatever. Then they go to, I guess, define it further. A foreign person or organization designed as a foreign terrorist organization under, what? Domestic terrorists? Why are they talking about a foreign person? An individual or organization designed under blah, blah, blah. Let's just go through all. I think everyone knows what their terms mean. Yeah, Secretary of Homeland Security, Uniformed Services has the meaning of whatever. Okay. Offices to combat domestic terrorism. Authorization of offices to monitor and analyze, investigate, and prosecute domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism unit. There is authorized a domestic terrorism unit in the Office of Intelligence and Analysts of the Department of Homeland Security, which shall be responsible for monitoring and analyzing domestic terrorism activity. So basically, Homeland Security, Domestic Terrorism Office. There is authorized a domestic terrorism office in the counterterrorism section of the National Security Division of the Department of Justice, so DOJ, which shall be responsible for investigating and prosecuting incidents of domestic terrorism and which shall be headed by the Domestic Terrorism Council. Well, the Domestic Terrorism Council, that sounds promising. Domestic Terrorism Section of the FBI. There is authorized a Domestic Terrorism Section within the Counterterrorism Division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which shall be responsible for investigating domestic terrorism activity, staffing, Secretary of Attorney General, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Joint report, blah, blah. Annual report will be required no later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this act, and each year thereafter the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, and the Director of the FBI shall submit a joint report authored by the domestic terrorism offices authorized under blah, blah, blah. Let's see what's going to be in the report here. Contents. Each report shall include an assessment of the domestic terrorism threat posed by white supremacists and neo-Nazis, including white supremacists and neo-Nazi infiltration of federal, state, local law enforcement agencies, and uniformed services. All right, hold on. You know what that means? Do you know what that really means? Now, the other day, I don't know if you guys remember this, the other day when they started calling troops over to D.C. to watch over the inauguration, one of the things that caught my eye was there was a particular report that said that they were having trouble, and that one of the reasons it was taking longer than they had expected was they were having to vet the troops to make sure they knew where their loyalties lied. So in other words, if you had like a Trump flag or had worn a Trump hat, or you know, if your friends knew that you voted for Trump, they didn't want you coming to D.C. because you might be part of the insurrection, right? Well, the very first thing that they want in this report submitted to Congress every year is an assessment of the threat posed by evil white supremacists and neo-Nazis and their ability to infiltrate federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. So in other words, they want to cleanse law enforcement of white people. They want to get rid of people who might be sympathetic to you and I, just normal white people, who might not want to enforce racially motivated laws, who might not want to march you into a FEMA camp. I mean, I'm not saying this is where it's going, but like, you know, just if it did, this is the kind of thing that, you know, that the first priority of this law is to essentially purge anyone who's not down with global homo out of the armed forces, and not just the armed forces, not just out of the military, but out of every agency. So out of the DOJ, out of the FBI. I mean, look, I feel like they've already kind of done a good job of this already. Like, I feel like this is going to be a pretty easy thing for them to wrap up. But now it'll be codified. It'll be in writing. It won't just be like the way the universities do it, where, you know, they weaseled their way into management positions and then proceeded to just not, you know, just to hire their friends, essentially, right? And not in the military, you had the same sort of a thing where you had all these diversity hires that got into important spots and then stopped promoting the people that didn't see the world the way they did. Or these especially these police departments that you see in Democrat-run cities, where they've essentially they don't uphold the law or enforce the law. They've become thugs for the governor or the mayor. And so that's their first order of business, is to basically remove anyone that they call, and again, they called everyone that went to D.C. on January 6th as white supremacist terrorists, right? So anyone that would be conservative or right-leaning and white and Christian, you're going to be seen as a threat in every law enforcement agency in the country. So that's the first thing that they're looking at. All right, so B. In the first report, analysis of incidents or attempted incidents of domestic terrorism that have occurred in the United States since April 19th, 1995, which is weird. I don't know why they chose April 19th. I almost want to look at what happened on April 18th in 1995. In each subsequent report, an analysis of incidents or attempted incidents of domestic terrorism that occurred in the United States during the preceding year, and a quantitative analysis of domestic terrorism for the preceding year, including the number of domestic terrorism related assessments initiated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, included by the number of assessments from each. All right, so basically they just want like a shit ton of fucking data that will probably be as honest as the data that they cited earlier in this bill. They've got including, all right, number of investigations from each classification, all right, blah, blah, blah. Number of investigations of every subcategory, blah, blah, all right. The number of deaths and injuries resulting from each incident, and a detailed explanation of each incident. Number of arrests, all right, just a bunch of statistical data. Hate crimes. Hate crimes. Here we go. In compiling a joint report under this subsection, the domestic terrorism offices authorized under paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 of the subsection A shall, in consultation with the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, something that shouldn't exist, and the Civil Rights Unit of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, another thing that shouldn't exist, review each hate crime incident reported during the preceding year to determine whether the incident also constitutes a domestic terrorism related incident. All right, so more reports. So that's not just more data, and this is the kind of data. Basically, you might wonder, like, why is so much of this focused on data? Why do they have, why are they talking so much like about data here? Well, I told you the first order of business wasn't about data, was it? The first order of business was make sure we don't have fucking whitey in our ranks. We need to extinguish any white lights in our ranks. And all this data here, this is just going to be what they use for I mean, as you saw earlier in the bill, they really don't have an argument to make. So most of what they're talking about here is the way the government agencies work, you got to understand. It's kind of like budgeting, and you see this in corporate environments too. I'm sure everyone's heard this story where when they're doing the budget and they ask you, well, how much money do you need for X next year? And you always say more than you actually think, because if you say less and then you need it, it's really hard to get. But if you say more, then you always have that wiggle room. Now, at the same time, at the end of that fiscal year, if you have like an extra, 20,000, look, I've seen something like this happen where you literally have an extra $20,000, maybe even $50,000. And if you don't spend it, the budget office will say, oh, we gave them $50,000 too much last year, so we're not going to give them that much money next year. And so what does your boss do, or whoever's in charge of that money? They buy shit you don't need because they don't want to have their budget decreased, right? Because they need to justify their existence. So, government bureaucrats do this, corporations do this. This is just the way it works. So this is kind of the same environment they're going to be creating with these reports. They're going to be creating all these different offices that are designed to attack a problem that doesn't exist. And so if you start turning in reports that are saying your department isn't necessary, that's a problem, right? So you're going to find the data. You're going to make it up if you have to. You're going to make these reports because if you turn in a report to Congress that says, actually, there is no big, scary white supremacism threat to the United States. Actually, there is no big, domestic white nationalist terror network or whatever. Then you're out of a job. So you're going to find it. You're going to find it or you're going to invent it. I mean, there's been several examples of the FBI doing stuff like that, where they create Islamic terror, they create domestic terror, so that they can then bust those people and say, look what we did. We did such a good job. They create the problem so they can solve it, so that they can prove that they're not obsolete, prove that they're necessary, or better yet, they deserve a promotion. And so you're going to have the same sort of a thing going on with these new offices. And all these reports, not only will they be used for funding, they're going to be cited over and over and over again about how, oh, see, look, this report came out by the, white supremacist office of whatever, and it shows here clearly that there's a big rise in you know what I mean? And this, by the way, this goes hand in hand. One of the last things that Trump, we'll see what else he does, but I think it was yesterday, the day before, Trump on his way out is signing this bill into law that's creating a whole new position for this czar to fight, or he already did the anti-Semitism czar, but this is like adds to it. So that he's created this anti-Semitism office that's going to be policing anti-Semitism online. And if you don't think that they're going to tie this shit together, you're crazy. This is the road we're going down, guys. It only gets worse from here. Okay, so that's all the reporting stuff. Training to combat domestic terrorism. This probably is going to be pretty boring. Just talking about, well, see what they're going to do. This is where it gets a little shitty. Like the critical race theory, right? How they have that, Trump got rid of it. Well, it'll be right back, in a couple days. So I guess Trump got rid of it for a few weeks. The same training that they're going to be enforcing on these federal employees, it's going to be distributed to local and state law enforcement. So that's what it's saying here. It's saying that they're going to budget, put aside some money to provide state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies, including the state and local anti-terrorism program that is funded by the Bureau of Justice Assistance of the Department of Justice, and ensure that such programs include training and resources to assist. Basically, they're going to be giving money to local police departments and stuff like that to fight white supremacist and neo-Nazi infiltration of law enforcement agencies. So again, it's to make sure you do not have right-wing people in your police force. They're literally spending money at the local level to make sure you do not have... Why do you think they'd want to do this? Why do you think they'd want to do this? What's so important? Why does this seem to be like the focus of this bill? That they really need to make sure law enforcement doesn't have anyone that's right-wing in it. Why do you think they want to do that so bad? I think you know. So that's a big part of that. Next, you have no later than 1 year, blah, blah, blah. Attorney General shall submit. This is all right. So there's more reporting, blah, blah, blah. All right, and now here towards the end, combating domestic terrorism through joint terrorism task forces and fusion centers. That sounds fun. In general, the Joint Terrorism Task Force of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and state, local, and regional fusion centers, as established under Section 210A of the Homeland Security Act of 2002, thanks Bush, shall each in coordination with the Domestic Terrorism Executive Committee and the Domestic Terrorism Offices authorized under paragraph. All right. Share intelligence to address domestic terrorism activities. All right, so now what you're talking about is you're not only first order of business in this bill, let's get all the white right-wing people, or really probably just white people, out of law enforcement at the state, local, and federal level, right? Pretty clear. I mean, it's in black and white. It's in writing. Let's do that. Next, let's connect all of these law enforcement agencies so that the local, state, and federal are all working together through these fusion centers. These fusion centers to fight white supremacists. You see where this is going? I hope you see where this is going. Most people aren't going to see where this is going. Most people aren't going to see this coming. They will share intelligence to address domestic terrorism activities. So, that's fairly easy to do. They'll conduct annual intelligence-based assessment of domestic terrorism activities in their jurisdictions, formulate and execute a plan to address and combat domestic terrorism activities in their jurisdictions. So what that means is they're going to try to whittle away at any kind of bubble of protection you have at the local level. So if you think that, oh, well, I'm actually safe because my sheriff is based or whatever, this is to slowly whittle away at that. It's to make it to where you can't run away from the problem by going to some rural area that you think is based. It's extending their tentacles into these local law enforcement offices. And it'll all be, centrally controlled by, Democrats for the foreseeable future. Trump was the last chance to turn things around, and instead he decided to sell us out to Israel and Jared Kushner. Section 7, Interagency Task Force. No later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Attorney General, the Director of the FBI, the Secretary, and the Secretary of Defense, so that's now the military, shall establish an interagency task force to combat white supremacist and neo-Nazi infiltration of the uniformed services. So again, this is the focus. What do you see? Over and over and over again. What are they focused on? Getting white people out of law enforcement, getting, and not just police, out of the FBI, out of the DOJ, out of the military now. Over and over and over again. So all this talk like, oh, well, the military's on our side. It was bullshit to begin with, but now it's like steaming pile of horse bullshit. Like there's going to be no truth to that whatsoever. Like it's already like not really that true. Like like I think we've all seen the photos of the people that showed up to DC, right? And look, I just lived on I used to think that, by the way, when I lived in an area that was relatively based, and I was near a base, and I had friends that were in the Marines, and they were all pretty much right-wing people, and that was just my, oh, well, apparently the military, that's just how they are, right? It makes sense. And then I moved to the East Coast, and I started talking to some guy. He was a Marine, and so I just assumed some things about him politically. Yeah, I was totally wrong. And about him and all of his friends at the bar, and I almost got in a fight with a bunch of Marines because I just thought that they wouldn't be faggots, but apparently they were. And so that's no longer the case. It's no longer the case. The fact that Trump had to say that he wanted to ban trannies from the military, that tells you everything you should need to know. And the fact that don't ask, don't tell but they got rid of that. I mean, even when they had that, because you used to, there was no don't ask, don't tell. That was the first step to get rid of any rules against being gay. Before, it wasn't don't ask, don't tell. They would ask. And if you were gay, you were out of there. So then they said, well, it's fine. You can be gay as long as no one finds out about it. Where do you think that's going to head to? Well, it heads to where we're at today. And now, if you're white and you don't want to give hormones to your kid after chemically castrating him, then you're not allowed in the military either. And the final section is just talking about where the money is going to come from, I guess. So, kind of irrelevant. Now, here's the funny thing. Like, what we just read through this whole bill talking about the dangers posed by the domestic terror threat that the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists are behind, right? Well, that's weird because that guy doesn't look very white to me. That guy does not look very white to me. So here's the threat that they don't care about. Here's the threat that, like, honestly, if he hadn't been in there in the Capitol alongside all the people wearing MAGA hats, nothing would have happened to this guy. Nothing would have happened to him. The only reason why anything happened to this guy is he happened to be with a bunch of quote-unquote white supremacists, and he just got caught up in the net. And there's too much footage of him, and they can't not charge him, right? So in case you haven't been paying attention, this guy is John Sullivan. And he's just like this BLM larper guy. And this guy is, I don't know if you guys have seen the videos. Maybe you guys haven't, I don't know. Let me take a look and see if I've got a picture I can pull up. But this guy, let me see here. Oh, that's interesting. Well, look, long story short, this guy was arrested. He was featured on CNN the night of with this reporter, and they had all this inside the Capitol kind of footage. And then later, people were looking at footage of him in other streams, and this guy that was being interviewed by CNN with their reporter as if he was like helping her get the footage and like he was a reporter of some kind. There's all this other footage of him with a megaphone saying that they need to burn the Capitol down and that they are going to remove Trump by force. Like stuff that doesn't sound at all like what a Trump supporter would be yelling on a megaphone. So here's the thing. The Q people that say, oh, see, like it's all these agitators that caused it. No, he was yelling on a megaphone that they wanted to forcibly remove Trump. So he wasn't like trying to secretly, be like a MAGA guy. He was just a retard. And this guy's Discord server got leaked, and there's some very interesting things. Now, this bill doesn't seem to care at all about people like this. We are going to counter-protest that shit. Yeah, I want to do more to counter that, but my main focus right now is finishing high school. See, this is what Antifa is. Word, it just sucks because so much Trump supporters here in Utah, and no one cares about Black Lives Matter or countering these motherfuckers. Just because I was at the VP debate a few months ago, and there were hardly any BLM supporters there. There are a shit ton of Trump supporters. Everyone in this Facebook event there has a link to a Facebook group. You should go and join this group, as it is for Trump's cue to overthrow the American government. So this is on 12/28. These BLM and types were infiltrating the Facebook groups that were organizing the Stop the Steal shit on the 6th because they wanted to do a counter protest. And look, it wasn't like some big op to like, we're going to agitate them, we're going to make them storm the... It wasn't. It really wasn't. And if you watch the footage of this guy, and I wish I'd had it, I probably should have pulled it down. But he's on a megaphone yelling stuff that's clearly not pretending to be a Trump supporter. He's talking about, we're going to get Trump and blah, And so these little faggots all conspired and all larped, all up and down. Like, look at this stuff. Why is it that that bill doesn't see people like this as a threat? Look, this is 12/29/2020. Civil War and Revolution, both. Because he's a badass. He's gonna do Civil War and Revolution. He gets even more larping. Don't worry. The protest will happen all over the nation at everyone's state capital. I bet in some of the more conservative states it'll be a stronger presence. Spelled presence wrong. So all these are happening at your state capital. This is happening all over the nation, so it's about to get crazy. Utah's terrorist groups plans to storm the Capitol on January 6th. So look, he was just trying to make gay counter protests, which apparently didn't work out at all, right? Like they showed up, and then this guy was in the crowd. And again, the Q people are going to go crazy, like, see, he's on the front line. No, they were vastly outnumbered. So this guy just circled himself in the crowd here at the Capitol. I was in the front line of the battle, and I know who was there personally. It was a large sum of anti-Trumpers. So he's saying there was a large sum of anti-Trumpers up here at the front line. I don't think it was significant, as they say. But like, look, it just goes to show it was a mixed bag, and it's exactly why I told people that going there on the 6th was probably a bad idea. So here's another, I guess, poster of going to the Capitol on January 6th that they put together because they were going to do a counter protest. They just got, I think, honestly, they just got overwhelmed, wrapped up, and then they decided to cause trouble. See, here's him like, I'm going to infiltrate in my Trump hat. Now, he totally looks like a Trump supporter with that Trump hat. Battle ready, guys. Got a bunch of gas masks and gloves. Some cheap walkie-talkies and some bandanas. Everything you need for revolution. That's your how-to revolution kit. Gas mask, gloves, bandanas, walkie-talkies. I think that's a mask. And I don't know what that is. Like bookmarks or something. Instant revolution. Oh, look at that. He's got his body armor. He's got his body armor all ready to go. Brand new body armor. He's so proud of it. I'm going to dress up like a Like a black stormtrooper. I guess stormtroopers are black nowadays, huh? I'm gonna dress up like a stormtrooper. Here's the super LARP photo. Ooh, he badass. Wow, I'm scared just looking at this photo. I don't know. I don't know. You definitely should not mess with him. He looks like he plays airsoft a lot. And that's from September of this last year. We have to show up in full gear tonight. I'm gonna show up in my full gear. Ready for tomorrow, guys. Oh, look, he's got a giant ammo can. He's all set to go. Got my AR-15. My giant box of ammo. Got my airsoft vest. All ready to go, guys. So yeah, they arrested this clown. He's apparently also he's in an Uber commercial because he's an Uber driver. Maybe I can find that video here. Let me look here. John Sullivan, Uber. All right. Come on, you slow internet. You fucking slow internet. I don't know if this is gonna actually play, but we'll try. Okay, this may or may not play.
There's no other time in my life that I will be able to do this again. My dream is to be world champion. Every single day, 6 hours a day. I wouldn't be able to do that. It's just not possible. Uber allows me that flexibility to...
So that's the scary guy right there. The guy driving. He's the BLM guy.
Spend more time on the ice. I am John Sullivan. I'm a world-class speed skater, and I drive with Uber.
Of course he's an ice skater too. So yeah, that's the BLM guy that they arrested. You know what? I want to find his arrest photo is pretty funny. It's not his arrest photo. It's the photo that's been going around though. Yeah, this one right here. So he's been arrested. Oh boy. It's all fun and games until you have to get treated the same way quote unquote white supremacists / Nazis do, huh? You know, you shouldn't have gone. You shouldn't have showed up. You should have waited till it was a BLM riot. Then nothing would have happened to you. You would have been fine. But no, you had to show up when they're actually enforcing the laws. Now you're fucked. And speaking of fucked, you probably didn't even get to fuck that CNN reporter. I guarantee you that you were trying to fuck. And if you did, she's not that hot, guy. Is it really worth it? Was it worth it? Was it worth the hand job she gave you in the car? Probably not. Probably not. Someone asked, was he charged? Yeah, I believe he's charged. All right, let me go off this here now. Okay. Test. All right. This OBS has been acting crazy with the audio tonight. I'm going to have to go through. A lot of my scenes are like super full of garbage now because I've been just throwing in like images and videos like it's like very disorganized, and I think it's kind of overloaded shit. So let me take a look at chat for a little bit here. But that's kind of the that's the future. The future is you're going to have larpers like that guy and his whole gang going around and burning buildings down for years and nothing really happening to him until he makes the mistake of larping too close to the scourge of the white supremacist terror. And unfortunately, that's going to be the focus of the federal government for the next, foreseeable future. Little by little, they're going to try to purge as many people that might be sympathetic to you in law enforcement at every level of law enforcement. Every single level. It's going to be mandated by law. It's no longer going to be like, well, let's not hire Jimmy. I thought I saw like a Trump bumper sticker on his car. It's going to be, no, not only are we not hiring Jimmy, we're going to put him on a database so that no law enforcement agency anywhere in the government, whether it's at the local level or the federal level, or even the military, will accept him because he will be on the we saw a Trump sticker on his car list. And that's what's going to happen. That's what that law is talking about. That's exactly what those agencies are designed to do. Or not agencies, those offices within the agencies. That's what they're designed to do. They will blacklist anyone and everyone that they can find an excuse to blacklist. Someone that they think won't go along with the global homo agenda. And it'll be like you'll have, and it's already kind of like this, but you'll have the exact same people in law enforcement that you have at the universities. And that's that. What's going to happen to rich white liberal suburbs? Well, nothing. I mean, nothing's going to happen to them. They're going to be well policed. Because usually when you talk about rich white liberal, you're not really talking about white people a lot of times, but yeah, I mean, the rich white liberals, the limousine liberals, they're going to be fine. I don't know if they'll be fine indefinitely. There might come a time when they get, once they get rid of us. The irony is, we are like the dam that's holding it back, right? And then once they get rid of us, yeah, I would say that the white liberals aren't going to stand a chance. But at that point, we'll already be gone, so fuck them. Let's take a look here. F the GOP. Yeah, the GOP is what ushered all this in. The GOP decided at one point, or maybe it was all part of a plan, or who knows. There's no way to know. But for whatever reason that we don't have a crystal ball to determine, the GOP decided that the worst possible thing that could ever happen is that you get called a racist. And so all that would have to happen for anything to get through, including Obama getting elected, was for people to shout racist at you. And they would do nothing. And that worked for like 50 years. Literally like 50 years. And a lot got done in that 50 years. You can get a lot done in 50 years. So now we're in this mess. And the boomers were too busy enjoying all the new ethnic food that was coming into the neighborhood. And marveling at the diversity. Like, oh, isn't it so cute? You know what? Little Devin, he has a classmate that's from Trinidad. And today in Show and Tell, he brought in his tribal garb and talked about all of his customs. And they shared it with the class. And his mother brought in this Trinidad dish that they all ate. And it's so marvelous to see little Devin experiencing the cultures that the world has to offer. I'm so glad that we had the Immigration Act of 1965. Obviously they didn't articulate it like that, but that's how boomers like my parents, my right-wing parents, saw it. Was just like, oh, this is great. This is great. Look at all this, look at all this culture that we have. Oh my God. And meanwhile, the mainstream culture was telling you how whites are boring. Whites don't have a culture? You know, like you get, the only Americans that are even cool at all are black people. You know, they're the ones that have all the culture and the style. And so that's why the boomers let it happen. And you know, as you get older, you're not really interacting as much with the world. I mean, you've already got your friend, you know, your friend group already kind of established. You're not going out and socializing just randomly, like in public and stuff like that as much, right? The older you get, the less you interface with the public around you. So, for example, like these boomers that I hear on ham radio, a lot of these guys, they live in the forest. They haven't been out in a city for probably like 20 years. They don't even know how bad it is. They have no fucking clue. And if you watch TV, and that's your window into what reality is, which it is for a lot of people, not just boomers, a lot of people, then that's where you're getting your information as to how multiculturalism is working out. And all that's telling you is how bad the white people are all the time. And a lot of people just internalize that and think, oh, yeah, I guess we are bad. I guess I should just react in shame every time a non-white wants something. I should just let them have it because, you know, clearly I am part of an evil group that is very oppressive and just we owe them after all the evil that we continue to do. Devin, USA was lost long ago. Federal Reserve was a death blow, and imagine the subversion that enabled that in the first place. Yeah. No, the Federal Reserve certainly did not help things, and I think it was doomed to be, from the beginning. I think the founding fathers knew it was doomed from the start. I really do think that the founding fathers knew it was doomed from the start, and I wish that they had. If you look at their private writings, they don't. I mean, literally, they were white nationalists. Benjamin Franklin didn't even want Italians coming because he thought they were too dark, and I forget the word he used, but he thought they were unacceptable and incompatible with our system. So he didn't want. He wanted mostly just it to be, you know, English people coming here. And there was a lot of that feeling among the founding fathers. You can see it in their private writings. Even Lincoln didn't want blacks to coexist with whites. Lincoln said publicly, it's on the record, that his Emancipation Proclamation was in no way intended to have black people live as equals among white people. He thought that the division between Southern whites and Northern whites was already enough of a problem. And then he said, if you know, the last thing we need is to introduce an even more different group, and in fact, he called them inferior in this speech, and said that his plan was to send them to Africa to go colonize Africa, which, you know, that's where Liberia comes from. Was a bunch of ex-American slaves went and genocided a bunch of Africans and made Liberia. So Lincoln literally wanted to send the slaves back to Africa. So not even Lincoln thought that multiculturalism was a good idea. So this idea that all of a sudden there's like this crazy hate, this racism, this white nationalist, this neo-Nazi growth, this cancer just festering. No, this is just normal. This is just what the founding fathers believed. This isn't extremism at all. No one's talking like there literally isn't, as we just went over, there really isn't any statistical like danger as compared to the normal danger you see from other groups. You know, the white people are the least of your problems in terms of, if you're looking at violence and you're looking at statistics in America, white people are the least of your problems. Let's take a look here. John Wilkes Booth was half Jew and worked with the Rothschilds. Yeah, I've heard stuff like that. I don't know. I haven't researched that myself, but I've heard stuff like that. Lincoln was the worst president. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, Lincoln was a tyrant. You know, if the South should have been allowed to secede. Who knows where the what the landscape would look like right now if that had been allowed to happen. If you had the Southern, you know, if you had the Confederate States of America and the United States of America, two separate countries. Oh, they never could have had peace. Yeah, they could. Look at Canada. When was the last time we invaded Canada? We've left Canada alone. We could have leveled Canada at any time we ever wanted. I mean, it's fucking Canada. But, you know, we've left them alone. They've left us alone, obviously, because we would destroy them. but yeah, we could have lived side by side, no problem. But nope, couldn't have that happen. Instead, we have to kill our citizens in the hundreds of thousands to preserve the wealth of a small few. Someone's asking me about Calvin Coolidge. I have never dug into him, so I don't really have a strong opinion on him. But maybe I'll have to do that. American didn't suddenly get corrupted. It's always been bad, exactly. Opinions on Nixon. Nixon's a mixed bag because Nixon took us off the gold standard, but Nixon was also removed by the deep state. And you have to wonder why. And if you listen to his recordings, his private recordings from his office, he actually sounds kind of based. Right? But it is weird that he took us off the gold standard. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because that was really bad. Like, really, really bad. He also opened up trade with China, which was really, really bad. So, on a personal level, he was probably based in a way, just like by listening to his personal conversations that we have recordings of. He sounds like he was in the right headspace and on a lot of issues. But then you look at stuff that he did and it's just like, what the fuck? So, you know, like he's the one, you know, the reason why China is such a big problem right now is because of Nixon. Or at least in part because of Nixon. And the reason why the debt is such a big problem is also kind of because of Nixon. Because Nixon took us off the gold standard. So, I'm Southern and I believe we should have been allowed to leave, but we have problems with Jays in the Confederacy example, Judah P. Benjamin. Well, there was a lot of slave owners that were Jewish in the South. There was a lot of, and not just, you know, plantations, but like textiles. A lot of that stuff was owned by, well, the ADL, right? The ADL exists because of a Southern Jew raped one of his child workers and then blamed it on a black guy. And they lynched him. Not the black guy, the Jew. And so B'nai B'rith, which is like a secret society for Jews, created the ADL to defend Jews that get in trouble. And it was largely used to defend Jewish gangsters. You know, mobsters, actually like literal mobsters and organized crime members. That's what the ADL focused on for decades. And probably where it got a lot of its funding from. Because it would go after people and try to destroy them in the Jewish press. Someone said Leo Frank. Yeah, that's the name of the guy that, yeah, and Mary Fagan is the name of the child worker that he raped to death. So yeah, that's the history of the ADL. I don't know if you're aware of that. The ADL was founded to protect a child rapist. So, rich history of the ADL. And now the ADL is who provides the FBI with their hate statistics. And you wonder why that bill seemed to really focus on this crazy uptick in anti-Semitism. Yeah, none of this looks good, guys. None of this looks good. Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, it really wasn't. It's not like it was better under Trump. I mean, this stuff Trump was not a Nazi. Trump is basically Jewish. You know, his kids are all married to Jews. His grandchildren are Jews. He often called himself the King of Israel. His face is on a coin in Israel. They renamed part of the Golan Heights into Trump Heights. He moved their embassy to Jerusalem to fulfill some kind of stupid Zionist prophecy bullshit. I mean, look, he wasn't gonna even hold this kind of stuff back. He wasn't. All of this, Pompeo just the other day, might have been yesterday. Pompeo said that anti-Zionism was anti-Semitism. You realize that there's anti-Zionist Jews, right? There are anti-Zionist Jews, a lot of them. And Pompeo, a Zionist himself, said that anti-Zionism was anti-Semitism. So Trump wasn't going to make any of this stuff get better. He wasn't going to make it take any longer. You know, this bill was written in 2019, and that FBI or no, that DOJ guy that wrote the op-ed in the New York Times, that was Trump's DOJ. Christopher Wray, Trump's FBI director, said that one of the biggest problems facing the country was white supremacism and white extremists, basically. Like that, every agency has been pushing this for a while, for years. The bill was written in 2019, and they're citing stuff. These think tanks have been talking about this stuff since 2017, actually since before then. But they really ramped it up after Trump got elected, because regardless of who Trump was and is, and as much as they knew that they were lying about him being a fascist and all this other stuff, they knew who his voters were. And it scared them that there were so many people that were voting for a guy, even though it was totally misguided, but they were voting for a guy that to them stood for a opposition to global homo. You know what I mean? So what they do, they got right to work because it scared them. They didn't think there'd be a quite that kind of... They thought Obama had launched us into this global homo post-history future. And unfortunately for them, that was not the case. And Trump kind of signified that. And so they're gonna focus on getting rid of you, is what I'm getting at. Your country is going to see you as an enemy for the foreseeable future. And it's entirely possible that between now and the 20th that there's some shenanigans or bullshit that happens in DC or wherever it happens, and they'll just use that. It'll just be more fuel for the fire. And they'll use that to say, look, see, look how dangerous these people are. It occurs to me the Mueller investigation was a perfect cover for Trump. I was moving so fast. Trump not keeping his promises to stay and keep the... Yeah, it's possible. Because Trump had the power to stop the Mueller investigation at any point in time. Any point. He literally could have. Oh, but that would have looked bad. Oh, it would have looked bad, and what? He wouldn't have been reelected? Oh, well, you know what I mean? Like, all this... Think about that. For the last 4 years... Everyone that said, well, if Trump did that, the media would make him sound crazy. Well, all of that was stupid. Everyone that said that was an idiot. Every single person that used that as an excuse for Trump not to act was a faggot. A stupid faggot. Because look what changed. So you mean that if he had done what he said he was going to do, the media would have written bad things about him and then he wouldn't have been reelected? Oh, thank God he didn't do that then. They're trying to radicalize people just like they do in the Middle East. Well, dude, in some ways I wish they could radicalize people. They're going to have a hard time. That's the thing, is just those statistics I read off in that bill. They're trying to make it sound like it's this big problem. And they're trying real hard to come up with these numbers, and they end up having to take cases from New Zealand, and Canada, because they couldn't make the case. So they're having to look all around the world for some examples to use. That the whole reason, a big chunk of why we're in this problem is white people aren't radicalized. They're just taking it on the chin and in the butt, They're not going to. It's going to be real difficult for them to try to get white people to do anything crazy. So that's why they're going to have to rely on probably some bullshit. White people are just they're very domesticated and possibly terminally domesticated. If you get a domesticated animal and you throw it in with a bunch of wolves, it's not going to live very long. And that's kind of what's that's kind of what's going on right now, I think. Is you have a bunch of domesticated white people who, for centuries, they've been bred to be more and more domesticated. Think about it. Look, how do we get domesticated dogs? This is really, it's not even just a metaphor. It's descriptive. The way that we got domesticated dogs is you bred a couple wolves, and the least, violent, the happiest one that you got, you'd breed those. And you just keep breeding the nicest ones that weren't going to fucking bite you or attack you. And you keep doing that long enough until you get fluffy little doggo, right? And it takes a really long time, but eventually you get there. And in fact, eventually they're unrecognizable. They're not even the same as the wolf that they came from, right? They look nothing like them in many cases. Well, what do you think civilization did to white people? For centuries, if you were a violent asshole, town square, hanging from a rope is where you ended up. Death penalty, death penalty, death penalty, incarceration. You weren't passing on your genes. They were knocking you out of the gene pool. And this went on for centuries and centuries and centuries. And we've just domesticated our population. And then you invite all these people from countries that have not undergone the same pressures, have not evolved under the same conditions, and in fact, in some cases, had opposite pressures. And you throw them in the mix, and it's identical to having a kennel that's full of fluffy little doggos. They're all getting along, and then you just release a bunch of wolves and tigers and shit into the fucking the kennel, and expect it to all just go. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I had to cough there. All right, let me take a look here at chat again. I want to be a wild wolf from BC and train it, or get a wild wolf. You know what I wanted to get? I wanted to get they make these hybrid cats where they breed basically like a domesticated cat with like a jaguar or some shit. They like a jungle cat, and they make these they're like these really big cats that can kill dogs, and you feed them raw meat and everything. They're just like these, but they're slightly. They're not as wild because you're putting in some of those domesticated genes in there. But yeah, they also are just, they're slightly dangerous. You need like a lot of room for them to be, because they're like wild, they're half wild animal, you know. Maybe if I had like a lot of property, it'd be kind of funny to have. What, like a liger? Like Napoleon Dynamite's favorite animal? When are you moving to Trovo? I don't know. Eventually, I guess. I have an account there. If that's where everyone's gonna be, maybe I'll just move there this weekend or something. I feel like I should stay on this platform at least through the 20th. Because that's where everyone knows to go. And this is my streaming marathon of nightly streams is going to go through the 20th. But I'll probably go to Trovo after that. How many acres do I have? I cannot tell you that. Not very many. I'm not gonna. I will tell you that. You might be surprised at how small my property is, and you'd be probably very surprised at how little I paid for it, because that was a big consideration in me getting this property, was price, and so I didn't get an ideal property. It's just not ideal. It's good. I like it. I have no regrets, but there's certainly way better properties I could have got if I had more money. But I just want, for me, time was of the essence. I wanted to get the fuck out of the city. In fact, it wasn't long after I got out of the city that BLM riots were literally happening right where I used to live. It was not. It wasn't like. I mean, I was in a place that I thought would be cool, because it was where a lot of clubs were, and I was still kind of a degenerate when I picked that place to live. And it turned into a fucking nightmare right after I left. Like, it was already kind of getting that way, because it used to be a very white area, and little by little, after a couple years, all of my white neighbors moved out of my the complex I lived in, and that whole area kind of changed pretty quick. It was weird how quickly that changed. Is it Carl's? No, Carl's property is pretty close to mine. It's basically next to it. That's why I got it. But it's also small. Have you or can you do a video about picking land to live on? That might be an interesting video to do. But a lot of it just depends on what you like, what you want. Not a lot of people like the desert. I love the desert. Would I prefer to live somewhere else? I don't know. The thing about the desert that makes it more appealing for me is it's I don't know, like I've talked about it before, but just from a practical standpoint, the only thing that makes the desert bad, in my opinion, is the lack of water. Like, that's the only thing that makes it bad, and I've got a well, so that kind of solves that problem. And it's been a crazy dry year this year, and that's saying something for this area. So if the well dried up and I was trying to live off rainwater this year, then might be a problem. But if you can get enough storage, you can certainly live off rainwater in a normal year. And even like in a dry year like this, you might have to haul water a couple times maybe, or figure something else out. I guess ideally I would rather live maybe in a forest, but then you have to contend with snow. You have to, there's just like all these different things that you have to deal with in other environments. And I like the desert. And plus you have solar power, so it's like you got free electricity, free silent stealth electricity forever. And it's cheap. It is hot, but the you can get like a evaporative cooler, again, that uses more water, so that's another downside. Or you could just, there's ways you can build around that, and there's ways you can insulate. And like when I was doing my earthship in the desert, if I'd had the help that I needed and maybe some more money, that was going to be relatively easy to cool because it was going to be halfway underground. If I was going to rebuild this place again, I'd probably make it either half or all the way underground. And that solves a lot of your cooling issues right there. you know. And in fact, that solves a lot of your heating issues too. If you can do like a hobbit hole in the desert, you're pretty much, you know, you don't have to worry so much. I mean, you've got 6 foot of earth on either side and on top, you know, like you're good to go, and you're bomb proof. In fact, what I would love to do, if I ever have the time and the money, is get like those shipping containers, those big metal shipping containers, and just get like just excavate the, like just dig like a huge, like a massive hole that can accommodate like 4 of those side by side, right? And bury them essentially under enough dirt to where they are they escape the heat and the cold. You know, they're at that even 60 whatever degrees that you get to when you go down deep enough. And then you just have like a spiral staircase that would go down, have some sunroofs that you can close off, you know, that you can lock off. And you basically have a real underground bunker that would be, you wouldn't need any cooling costs, you wouldn't have any heating costs. You could easily power it with solar at that point. And if shit really went down, you could design it in such a way that it just looked like desert and people would just drive right past it. And you could dig a well, and you could run the well off of solar. But someone says you can't bury shipping containers. They aren't meant to take pressure. Well, you can still bury them. You just need to build something that, maybe put concrete around them or something like that. There's ways you can do it. I know people that have done it. I know the guy that I know that did it doesn't have multiple. He only has one, but he's got a shipping container that's 6 feet under that he and his family, he lives in a city that is near a desert. And he's got a shipping container in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's kind of weird. It's like his little oh shit bunker. And it's got all the stuff you need. It's got like a year of food for him and his family, because he's got like a wife and a daughter and I think a son now. And if they need to, they can drive out to the spot in the desert, lift up the hatch, climb down inside, and they're literally in this underground bunker that can accommodate them for about a year. So you can do it. I don't know what he had to do to reinforce it, but you can do it. How does it feel to speak to 1.6 thousand viewers live in the middle of the night after night? Is that what we got right now? I don't even know how many we got right now. I don't know. I used to, look, I'll be honest, it used to freak me out a little bit doing live stuff, but you get used to it just like anything else. I used to get really nervous especially because I think the first streams I went on were other people's streams. Like it might have even been like JF's stream. And it just felt weird because everything I had done prior to that had been scripted. And while I'm definitely able to, I've done, presentations in front of large groups. I told you I did very unsuccessfully. I did stand up, for a little while in front of crowds and stuff like that. So I can do it, but it never comes naturally to me. And doing this isn't so bad now. You get used to it after a while. But probably like the first, 10 or 20 times, it was like, oh, God, oh, Jesus. But then you just warm up to it. The hardest thing right now that I'm still trying to get used to is keeping up with chat. Because that's hard to do. Because it's hard to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about and keep track of all this text that's like scrolling past. Plenty of Cold War bunkers available. My family had one that was turned into a wine, I'm thinking it means cellar. Yeah, you know what? There's this crazy one that was for sale. That was, you ever see that movie? I did a video on the movie, or I think I did. No, maybe I didn't do it yet. I forget. But there was a movie called Blast from the Past, where they built like a underground bunker in the 1950s, and they thought that they got bombs. They ended up living in this bunker forever, and there was an actual bunker, and I'm looking for it now. Bomb shelter for sale. There was this huge... Yeah. This is it right here. It was crazy. All right, I'm going to bring this up, and hopefully it plays. Oh. Well, you know what? I'm not going to be able to play the video, but I'll try to find photos of it, because the video is just photos anyway. But they had this huge... Yeah, this is a Vegas... I'm going to bring this up here. This was a Vegas bomb shelter. This whole thing is underground. Like, they built it in, like, the 60s and 70s. Like, this is real. It exists right now. And it was just underneath this house. And they I don't know if they sold it, but it was for $18 million they wanted for it. And it was supposed to be self-sufficient. The outdoor lighting would change based on the time of day. So it would like try to do like, you know, morning, noon, and night kind of a thing. But yeah, it looks very kitschy. It's got a swimming pool. I mean, it's a luxury. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what kind of bomb shelter do people like, you know, Pelosi have? Because you know they've got them. I wish what I want to see is they had a photo of the outside. Oh, that's kind of 70. Or that, look at that. It's a grill that's inside of a fake rock. Yeah, I think, all right. So that's what it looks like from the outside. It's just like this normal ass house. Like this very unassuming looking house. Now, of course, since it went on sale, everyone knows that it exists. I mean, maybe like an emergency situation, people wouldn't remember to go to like this house. But underneath this normal, you know, unassuming looking house, you've got a massive bomb shelter. And there's stuff like that all over the country. There's missile silos. There was that guy that was making all the LSD back in the, I want to say the 80s, who bought like an old missile silo and just had this huge underground LSD laboratory that he was making LSD in for like a decade. So there's lots of weird shit like this all over the country that people don't even know about. Someone says it's still for sale. So there you go. You can buy it. 18 million bucks. That seems like a tall order. I don't know anyone that wants a blast from the past underground bunker for $18 million. That seems like a ridiculous amount of money. But maybe someone will. Yeah, it is like black. And this is just because I've done so many videos now. I was really going to do a video about Blast from the Past, and I can't remember if I actually did or not. I think I wrote the script for it. And now I'm going to have to go look if I actually did it. Because the thing about Blast from the Past was the whole point of it was, oh, look how awkward it is for this guy that has been raised by people from the 50s and 60s, who's now he's in the 90s, and like everything's so different, and he, you know, everything's so degenerate. But like they made it, in some ways they were honest about like how it had gotten worse, right? How the situation was worse than it was in the 50s, but a lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was making fun of him for not being, not knowing what gay people were and or understanding what prostitutes were and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of, we'll just say there was a lot of subversion in that film. And a lot of it was normalizing homosexuality because they knew that the movie was designed to be like kind of wholesome, right? Like that was how they sold it. It had Brendan Fraser, right? Like he was in all these Disney movies. You know, all the movies that he was in, they were all promoted as like, oh no, this is the kind of movie you can bring your kids to go watch. You know, like it won't have any nipples in it. We promise. You know, and there probably will, if there's an F word, it'll just be one little F word maybe. And if there's gay people in it, they won't fillet each other on camera. We promise. And so the parents would go and take their kids, or they wouldn't care if their teenage kids would watch these films, and then they would just sneak shit in there. And in that particular film, they've got that actor from Kids in the Hall playing like the wise gay man that is always. It's kind of like what they used to do with black people, where they had the magic black man that would solve everyone's problems because he was so wise. He was like the sage. And, like there's that character like in every single Stephen King novel. It's throughout the 70s and 80s especially, there was always that character. And it bled into the 90s a little bit. But then they started, they normalized black people, so now they had to normalize gay people. So it was the same sort of thing. So that character was just like super gay, but he was the one that had all the wise sage advice and helped the stupid cis characters, figure out all the obvious easy things about their relationship and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that was I thought I did a video on it. Maybe I didn't. And so maybe I'll have to go back and do that. Yeah, they got a golf course. Look at that. Brendan Fraser was doing good until he starred opposite Ian McKellen, and the movie was Gods and Monsters about James Well Frankenstein. I don't think I saw that one. Why is Bill Gates buying all the farms? That's a good question. I saw that story trending. There's a lot of things you could read into that. You could read into that it's just property, so it's going to be worth a lot of money. You could look at it a little more nefariously and say, well, it's because he wants to control the farmland so that he can control the food supply. I wouldn't put it past him, but I don't know if that's true. You could also say that he knows. Usually what he does is to make money, right? Like even all this vaccine stuff, he's getting rich off of it, right? So maybe there's something he knows about something that's going to be farmed in mass quantities. Look, it could be marijuana for all we know, right? Maybe he thinks that the future is going to be now that they need a real opiate for the masses, and marijuana fits the bill. They want to medicate even further the masses so they're even more docile than they already are. So they've been legalizing pot in all kinds of different states. Maybe it's something like that. Who knows? Or it could just be, like I said, it could just be as simple as just like investment. But with Bill Gates, I don't think anything's as simple as just an investment. I would definitely keep an eye on that. Are you familiar with Moldbug Curtis Yarvin's cathedral theories? Not a ton. I hear people talk about it, but you got to remember, what I did before this was filmmaking and 3D animation and news reporting, like media stuff. I really didn't get into the philosophy side of things so much, other than just what's like basic libertarian philosophy and stuff like that. So that's not my background. Like I can 3D model anything, and I know everything about filmmaking and stuff like that. But that's how I spent my my college years, I guess, if you will, studying that kind of stuff. So it's I'm not hip to, like, when people name drop all these guys. I know who they are because I hear people talk about it, and I just haven't taken the time to read all those books. I'm more about knowing what the media is trying to tell you. Like I've been watching the government and I've been watching the media for a long time, and I know what they're up to, or at least I can usually tell what they're up to. In terms of a philosophy that is designed to replace and fix the problems, that's not me. It's kind of like I was saying the other day. Well, let me put it this way. People always say, you always point out all these problems, but you never have solutions. And I would just say, look, you have a smoke alarm in your house. And when the smoke alarm goes off, you're not yelling at the smoke alarm, why aren't you putting the fire out? Why aren't you doing that? No, you're getting the fuck out of the house, and you're calling up the fire department, you're whatever. All the smoke alarm's there to do is to say, wake up, there's a fire. There's definitely a fire. You got to wake up, get the fuck out of here. There's a fire. That's the job of the smoke alarm. I'm the smoke alarm. Okay? Like, so I'm not there to put the fire out. I'm not there to do anything other than just to say, look, there's a fire right here. I see the fire. Definitely a fire. You got to get out of here. There's a fire. So that's my function. Is I identify the problem and I tell you about it. But that's where it ends. That's where the deal ends. You know, I'm not. Now I can tell you if someone comes up with a so-called solution, like with propertarianism, right? When John Mark came on and was talking about that, you know, I can identify exploits and problems with ideologies that people present. You know, I can be the smoke alarm in that situation too and say, well, what about this? This looks bad. But I'm not there to design the fireproof house. I'm not there to put the fire out. You know, I'm not stupid, and I can be part of that conversation, but that's not my expertise. So, why haven't I left the country? I've thought about it. The thing that keeps me here really is just it's my heritage, and maybe that's a dumb reason. Especially now, you know, it seems increasingly like it's not my country, but at the same time, I feel like if I do just leave, then that's kind of that defeatist attitude is what kind of handed the country over to these people in the first place, right? The lack of pride in the country that my family has lived and died on for centuries. My family's been here for centuries, not just like a little bit. My family was here pre-1776. So my family's been here a long ass fucking time. And if I leave, you know, and maybe I should, I don't know. I've thought about it, and it just right now, look, I have the option to leave. I have the ability to leave. I have places I could even go. But it just seems like I'd be giving up. Now, if it gets to a point where I can't safely, be the smoke alarm, for example, if I can't safely perform my job, maybe I'll have to revisit that. Because, you know, this is something I could do from another country if I have internet access, right? So maybe I'd have to go seek asylum somewhere. Like, really, a lot of us might have to. I mean, look, we just talked about that law they're going over. Why wouldn't there be a situation where you'd have to have political refugees, right? I think it's entirely possible that we get in a situation where it's just not safe for us. But who knows? Maybe we can turn this around. I don't, you know. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait and see on that one, just because something about it feels wrong. It feels wrong to turn and run. And no, I don't. Like I just said, I don't have the solution. But I right now I don't think that it's to turn around and run. If 2A is gone, then bail. Right. That's probably that would be a good barometer of things to come. If they successfully get rid of guns on any kind of mass scale, that might be something to think about. Now, someone just said, what country would you go? And that's the other problem, right? Like, where would you go? This is a global problem. I wouldn't go back to England, right? Where a lot of my family's from, or Scotland, you know? Like, that whole part of the world is fucked worse than we are. I would say, in fact, Europe in general is kind of fucked worse than we are. In terms of, all the English speaking, the Anglosphere, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, where would you go? You could go to I think maybe you could go to a third world country and just in the jungle or something like that and just hope for the best. I mean, fuck. I mean, is that going to be nicer than here? I don't know. There's some places in Eastern Europe that would be good in the short term, but it's just a matter of time. You go to Eastern Europe in the countries that aren't part of the EU, like Ukraine, for example, they're itching to be part of the EU. They want nothing more than to be part of the EU. And they want to be progressive. It's just, I see them as the United States in the 1990s. So you got a few more years before it gets bad. You can still make fun of gay people and, no one gets mad, and they generally are kind of racist and stuff. But it was like the 90s. It's America in the 90s is what it's like in Ukraine and those countries, I feel like. And so it's just a matter of time before that changes. And it could accelerate, especially if it's like they have an opportunity to join the EU. And it's just if you can join the EU, you just have to do these things, make these changes, and they would do it. You could go to, I know a little bit of Russian, and I feel like I know enough of the basics to where I could get going faster in Russian than maybe any other language that's not English. Well, maybe Spanish I could get up to speed on too. But, Russia doesn't sound like it's the best place in the world. I don't even know if you'd be able to immigrate there. See, this is the thing. There's really nowhere to go. And so I would, because the United States is so big, and because it is getting so polarized, it's almost a safer bet to stay here and hope that here's the way I look at it. So the polarization, think it like a fault line, like the San Andreas Fault in California. The earthquake happens when the pressure that's building up along that fault line finally becomes so much that the two sides, the landmass on either side of the giant crack in the ground, the giant fault line, the pressure building up is enough to make it shift and slide across itself. And it might not be that much. It might just be like a foot or whatever. And because, you have a giant landmass like that move at all, even if it is just like a foot or something like that, it shakes the entire state, knocks down buildings, all kinds of crazy shit happens. And I kind of feel like we're near the fault line, and we're polarized. We have groups on either side of the fault line, and both sides are applying pressure to this fault line. And at a certain point, it's going to slip, and shit's going to go down, and it's going to be felt around the world. And I don't know how that's going to... It could end very badly for us. I think we don't have the establishment. We have zero part of the establishment is on our side. So it could end very badly for us. And they're right now currently in the process of trying to ban every form of communication that we have, every ability that we have to organize. They're trying to ban us from having positions in law enforcement and not just at the local, state, federal level. They'll certainly make sure that there's no judges on our side, because judges get appointed by these people. Bureaucracy the same way, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be we're completely outsiders. And so there's only so many options when that happens. And there's only so many outcomes when that happens. And one of those outcomes is not so good. Well, really more than just one. But there's a lot of those outcomes that could be bad. And as someone said earlier, if they get rid of guns on a large scale, I think, the writing's on the wall at that point. And even if they do something not as dramatic as door-to-door gun confiscation, which is not the way I don't think anyone would ever attempt to do it, because it would just be too many. It would make people flip out. I think the red flag law type stuff that will be in direct reaction to a quote-unquote white supremacist terror attack will be what happens. And they'll do something similar to what that guy was predicting about, having an easy way for people to look you up in a database and report you to the authorities to be red flagged because of something you said on the internet. And the ATF shows up at your door, and you got two choices. And that'll, I think, happen. It'll be a trickle. It'll be a slow trickle. Like they'll go after only extreme cases at first, right? Like they'll only go after people who online have outright Fed posted like hardcore, like have said like stuff that will be difficult to defend, right? So if it becomes like this issue and there's a national conversation about it, no one's going to want to defend the guy because he outright is saying like, I'm going to go out and, and look, some of that could be fake too. They might just make up some people to have these examples to be widely reported. And no one will defend him. No one will want to be the guy who's defending the guy who said he's going to execute all the Jews or, whatever it is he says, right? And so they'll take his guns and no one will complain. And just like everything else, that's how it starts. And then they'll just slowly uptick it to the next thing like, and if they have to pepper in more and more quote unquote terror attacks to get people more willing to go along with it, they'll do it. That's what they've done in every country. Look at how Australia lost their guns if you want to know how effective they can be at removing guns from a population. And another thing they can do that would cause less panic is they could do just slowly tax new weapons and ammunition to a crazy degree. One of the bills they were discussing passing when Biden becomes president is a tax just on owning ammunition. So every year, if you've got like a big pallet of ammunition in your basement, you'll have to pay a tax on that every year. And they'll just make it so high that you can't afford to have ammunition. And so that's basically, it's that kind of stuff that they'll do. It'll never be they're going to go door to door and take all your guns, because if that happened, the war would start that day. So they'll just do this multifaceted drip, drip, drip attempt to get rid of it. And it might, they're patient. These people are patient. They know they're winning. So if they got to wait like another 10 years or so, they're patient. They'll do it. In fact, the only way it doesn't work is if they're not patient. That's the only way that they can fuck it up, is if they turn up the heat too fast, if they overstep their bounds. How would you know what ammo they are stockpiling? What if I shot it all? See, but there's people that'll say that, but look, they could just put it in the law that like if they have, and look, unless you paid cash for that ammunition, and even then, maybe they'll pass some law that forces people that sell ammunition to report all ammunition sales. And look, if you've got an abnormal amount of purchases, then the ATF can actually come to your home and look, you could lie to them or whatever, but a lot of people aren't going to want to do that. And it also is going to create a lot of opportunities for the ATF to say, well, he became dangerous. He was argumentative. We're red flagging him. You know what I mean? There's a lot of little things they can do. And I know people joke about like, oh, well, I can just tell them my guns fell out of my boat. And what are they going to do? Well, if everyone is saying that their guns fell out of their boat, all they have to do is have a couple high-profile cases of some guy that says that, and then the ATF finds out he has guns anyway or whatever, right? And then they highly publicize that, like, they really throw the... And even these cases can be fake. They really throw the book at these people and put them in jail, and then you're going to have your wife, or maybe not you necessarily, there's going to be people's wives saying, I don't want that gun in this house, because they could just take you away, they'll take our children, and look, they'll never get rid of all guns. I'm sure there's like secret illegal guns in the UK, right? But they don't have to get rid of all guns. They just have to get rid of a lot of them. And they can do that eventually. It'll just take time. They have to establish a license so they can make you sign away your rights. Right. Anything that you need a license for, they can take away. I see your point. Keep in mind there is still a burden of proof. Take that with a grain of salt, of course. Well, that's the thing. That this domestic terrorism thing that they're trying to pass. This actually isn't even the whole thing. This is one of them. They also want to do. This wasn't the same bill that I was expecting actually when I first started reading it. There's another one where they want to do more surveillance domestically, and that would like, let's say they just suspect, like, okay, perfect example. You say that your gun fell in the pond or whatever, right? They don't believe you. They stick you. They get a FISA, like the equivalent of a FISA judge, to rubber stamp surveillance on you, and then they just wait for you to say something that'll red flag you, and then boom, you're red flagged. You know what I mean? And then and they could even put in there that because they red flag you, they can now search your house to make sure you don't have guns because you're red flagged, and then they find the guns that you lied about, and now you're extra fucked. You know what I mean? Like this, they're not stupid. They know how. They think about this stuff. They know how to do it. If it was as easy as, oh, my guns fell in a lake, I mean, come on. They're not stupid. Now, a lot of people that enforce it are stupid. Maybe you can get away with it in certain circumstances, but they're going to think about this stuff. There's probably a good market for keeping people's ammo and guns in a warehouse. Oh, I don't know about that. If you're worried about it, there's people that stash stuff in places that wouldn't be found even if they searched your property. And that's not entirely I would say if that's something that you wish to do, that you should look into that. I'm just going to be very careful about language here. But no, there's people that, like if you create basically like a time capsule sort of a thing, and you bury a bunch of guns and ammo and maybe other supplies, and you stick it not even necessarily on your property. Maybe you put it in like national forest property, and you just bury it deep enough and hidden enough to where no one will ever find it. And then you just mark the GPS coordinates. And if shit ever gets really weird, you leave and go to those GPS coordinates with your shovel, and you dig it up and you're good to go. That's essentially what I was telling my buddy that has the underground shipping container. That's, he's just doing a large scale version of that. He's got like a weapons cache in that underground facility. And it's not that fancy, but like you literally would never know it was there. And even if you found it, it's not easy to get into it. So, he did a good job on it. Everyone check out Ruptly and the statement from Russia just put out. Why would they put out? Was it about the censorship stuff with Trump's? Let's check it out. Ruptly. For those of you who don't know, that's a Russian state news thing. I don't see anything big here. You just have, here, I'll show you guys. Go away. We got National Guard. Everyone knows that. COVID vaccine. Heavy rain wreaks havoc. Yemeni children. Edible faces. Trending. Video feed. I don't see anything big. COVID-19. German. Yeah, I don't see anything. I don't think anything's going to happen that's that crazy. And if it does, it won't be breaking on Ruptly. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me. I have to turn that wipe off so it's not massive dramatic wipe every time I switch screens. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to wrap things up. Let me release some more lemons here before we go. And then I'll be Audi 5000. Chest will open. Did you know citizens of NATO countries can easily get a CHL in the Czech Republic based for an EU country? I'm assuming that's some kind of gun license. I did not know that. Well, that was uneventful. Yeah. There was nothing really that happened there. All right, guys. Well, be prepared. Things are not going to be... things will get worse before they get better. They will get better. But they'll get worse first. That's the way it's going to be. And look, that's just the way it is. Things are shockingly worse than they were when I was a kid in the 90s. Like, shockingly worse. And they are going to be shockingly worse in another, 30 years. That's just the way it is. You will look back at 2020 and even 2021 and be like, God, I miss those days. It will happen. It will happen. Which, by the way, that's not that sounds like a very black-pilled thing to say, but at the same time, that's a good thing to say because it means that you will look back at these days being the good old days. So enjoy them. Right now, you're living. These are the good old days. Right now, happening right now. So enjoy them while you got them, and because it's not going to last forever. So anyway, you guys have a good evening, a good morning, a good afternoon. For Black Pilled, I am Devin Stack.
A felon, gangster, mafiotic, negroidic, the black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney, Nassau County, and watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious, lowly, sodomistic display by the felon, sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County.